Up until this point, we have looked at different types of energy, such as potential and kinetic, and then we also looked at non-renewable resources, including the fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. And in this video, we're going to look at our renewable energy sources. So some facts about the Earth is that it receives 174 petawatts, or 1.74 times 10 to the 17th watts of energy from the sun each year. And from Earth's interior, we get another 2.3 times 10 to the 13th watts of energy. And so when we look at that, the total energy that we consume worldwide is 16 terawatts, or 1.6 times 10 to the 13th watts per year. So the Earth itself produces plenty of energy for us humans to use. The trick here is, how do we harness that energy into usable forms for us? So the first answer here is solar energy. This is energy that comes from the sun, and it's Earth's main energy source. It gives us both light and heat, and it does so by the sun performs something called nuclear fusion. And nuclear fusion is the process of changing hydrogen atoms into helium atoms. This process releases a ton of energy. And so we receive that energy as radiation. This is the energy that can travel through empty space. Literally, this is the energy that moves through our solar system. And so this is how we also receive our visible light. So solar energy is a resource, and it can power energy plants. It's been used on a small scale for hundreds of years, and it's just starting to become sort of mainstream in order to produce electricity. It uses large groups of mirrors to focus light on one place, and we call this one place the receiver. Oops, switch those around. So at the receiver, there's a liquid, usually oil or water, and all this sunlight being concentrated right there heats that oil or water to a high temperature, and then that liquid will transfer heat by conduction. And conduction is a method of heat transfer between two objects that are touching. So when you touch like the legs of your desk, it almost always feels cold, and that's because heat from your hand is being transferred through conduction to the legs of your desk. Heat always moves from a higher temperature to a lower temperature. That's why it will move from your hand to your desk. Unless your desk has been sitting out in 100-degree weather, and that metal heats up very quickly, and then you touch that, then your hand will feel that heat from the metal flow to your hand, and you will feel a hot sensation. Solar energy is used to heat homes and water in order to make electricity. We can use solar cells, and these are the devices like here on this car that turn sunlight directly into electricity. When we put many of these solar cells together, they make up a solar panel. Homes or houses can trap the heat sun by using south-facing windows and good insulation. Using solar energy to heat homes produces no pollution, or not even just to heat homes, but to make electricity. It produces no pollution, and it won't run out. The big downfall or shortcoming is that the sun doesn't shine at night or every day. So those that choose to use solar power have to have a special battery to store energy that gets produced during the daylight in order to use that energy at night. Another downfall is that solar technologies, these solar panels, and that battery are expensive. However, they are getting more and more reasonable as new technology gets developed. Another clean energy source is water power. Moving water has energy. If you've ever been to like a waterfall, you can see that moving water is very strong. Or if you've been into the ocean with those waves and the tidal currents, you can feel that strong undertow. So hydroelectric power, hydro for water, it captures the energy of that moving water. It is the most widely used renewable resource energy in the world, and it provides about 1/5 of the world's electricity. This it gets captured from streams or rivers and waves and sometimes tides, but that is rare. So in order to use water power, a stream or river must be dammed. So this here is the Hoover Dam. Oh, just kidding, it's not the Hoover Dam. It is the Glen Canyon Dam. And so the water gets dammed in order for the humans to control that water. So while sitting behind the dam, that water has potential energy. So back here, all this water has potential energy. And it will turn to kinetic energy when it's allowed to flow down this hill. When it flows down that hill, it will spin a turbine. And that turbine will be connected to a generator, which then creates the electricity. So benefits and problems of hydropower. Since water doesn't burn, it creates less pollution. It is renewable because of the water cycle. Usually this is considered a downfall or a negative. That dams flood the land behind the dams, so we can lose scenery. People may have to move. Terrestrial or land habitat can be damaged. And then downstream from the dam, after the water is blocked off, organisms may not be able to survive. So if they were aquatic organisms, there's no longer a constant supply of water, and so they could die. The dams will also slowly release silt. Remember, silt is a type of sediment for sedimentary rocks. And so this can make the water actually really dirty. Our next type of energy we're going to talk about is wind power. And this is energy from the sun can create a wind. This is because it creates a convection current. This is the movement of energy through convection currents. And so wind is just the horizontal movement of air. So a convection current happens when you have a heat source near the bottom. So here's our little heat source. And when air warms up, it becomes less dense, and less dense items rise. And as it rises, it cools down because it's no longer by the heat source. And so now it becomes more dense and sinks back down to the heat source, where it's now going to heat up and rise and cool. And so this current or cycle powers wind. So windmills have been around for quite some time. They used to be used to grind grain and pump water. It's also used for sailing ships. Now more common, it's used to produce electricity. It spins a turbine, and that turbine will create electricity. And this piece here is what we're more familiar with in our area. So wind power has advantages and disadvantages, just like all of these. Advantages is that it's clean energy, and it's almost everywhere. And wind technology is being developed very quickly. Disadvantages is that the wind doesn't blow all the time, and that energy must be stored for later, kind of like the solar energy, how the sun doesn't shine all the time. Wind turbines are very expensive. They can wear out very quickly. Many residents don't like them. They're big, they're unattractive, they're noisy, and they can release stray voltage. One of the last types of renewable energy is biomass. So remember, the prefix bio means life. So this means using living or once living things as energy. Again, this is a renewable energy source, and it can include woods, grains, and other plant material. In our area, we're probably most familiar with using corn as a biomass that's plant material. Wood, a lot of people still burn it for heat energy. Biofuels are plant materials that are processed and turned into liquid that can be used to power cars and trucks. There's even some cars that can be powered completely by vegetable oil. This is our ethanol that we produce here in Minnesota. So using biofuels cuts down on the amount of fossil fuels that get used, and then growing plants for biofuels means less carbon dioxide is being put into the air. So a lot of our farms around here help out with that. And lastly, we have geothermal energy. This is energy that comes from Earth's internal heat. Remember the very first slide, we said that there was about 2.3 times 10 to the 13th watts of energy comes from Earth's interior. And we can feel this energy in like hot springs and geysers because those are produced from water that is heated by magma deep within Earth. So geothermal power plants drill wells into hot rocks, and that allows hot water or steam to come up through those wells. That hot water or steam spins a turbine, and that spinning the turbine makes electricity. So I believe in the last video I stressed this whole spinning of a turbine to make electricity, and so you can see it carries through for both non-renewable and renewable resources. So geothermal energy as a resource, it can be used without processing. It's clean, it's safe, it's renewable. These are all good things. Iceland gets about a quarter of its electricity from geothermal energy sources. Iceland also sits kind of on what we call a hot spot where there's a lot of magma near the surface. California is a leader of geothermal energy in the United States. However, it's not logical everywhere in the world because some parts of the world do not have underground sources of heat close enough to the surface for it to be usable. So this was your quick, fast-track look at renewable resources for this chapter.